Hello, you're watching BBC News. I'm Adnan Nawaz. These are the very latest headlines. The United Nations Security Council is discussing the crisis in Ukraine as fears grow of more violence. Russia's ambassador says Ukraine must stop waging war on its own people. Ukraine's ambassador retaliates, saying Moscow artificially created the crisis in eastern Ukraine with the aim of weakening the country and bringing it down. Dr. Michael Slobodchikoff is a lecturer at Troy University in Alabama. He's author of Strategic Cooperation, Russia's Relationship with the Former Soviet States. Is there any precedence for this sort of action as far as Ukraine alleges that Russia is trying to bring the country down in terms of Russia's relationship with former Soviet states?
Well, I think there's been a lot of war of media, a lot of war of trying to win over the protesters, and this occurred also on the Maidan Square as well, where you had agents brought in to try and urge them. So this is nothing new in this crisis. This is yet the next chapter.
Do you have any sympathy for those people in Ukraine who were against the mode of the transfer of power? Because Viktor Yanukovych was essentially driven out of the presidency. It was not a democratic transfer of power. Is there any sympathy for those people?
I think there is a sympathy for those people because those are the people who lost out on what is occurring now. And they lost out on a peaceful power transition to one that the people actually wanted, and the democratic transfer of power. And so those are the people who ultimately lost the situation in Ukraine.
What's your analysis of Vitaly Churkin, the Russian UN ambassador, saying that the West has the power to be able to stop what's happening in the east of Ukraine?
Well, I think his major point is that he wants to see a referendum. He wants to see a new constitution developed in Ukraine. And the West really does have the power to push the government in Kiev to go along with that. We've seen some conciliatory comments more recently from the government about the fact that they might consider that. And so we'll see what happens with the government there.
What do you think is going to happen in the next 45 minutes, that deadline passing, and the Ukrainian president saying he's going to send in the armed forces into those towns and cities in eastern Ukraine where government buildings are under occupation?
I think that will turn the tide of what happens. It's a historical moment. If the government goes in with the army, we'll either see one of two things. We'll see either a civil war begin to develop in eastern Ukraine, or we'll see Russian troops go in to help defend the people there. And so neither of those two scenarios are anything that the world wants to see.
Dr. Slobodchikoff, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us.